The tubeless dual-chamber system is like steroids for your tires, as it provides 100 psi of protection and stability at the rim where you need it, and massive low psi traction gains where you want it. Twice the traction, twice the protection.
There's been a big rift in the 250 class in recent years. On one side, pros and intermediates have lined up behind bikes like the KTM 250 SXF and the Husky FC250. They say power is still the single most important factor in the 250 class. And to be competitive there, you have to ride a bike that rewards being aggressive. On the other side, novice and weekend riders are big fans of bikes like the Yamaha YZ250F, the Suzuki RMZ 250, and the Kawasaki KX 250F. They want to have a bike that's friendly and fun above all. Now we have another factor in the mix. The 2018 Honda CRF250R is all new and completely unrelated to its predecessor. The Dirt Bike Magazine 2018 250 MX Shootout is all about exploring the status quo and about seeing which camp the Honda falls into, or can it be the bridge between the two worlds? KTM is in the driver's seat for this year's 250 MX Shootout. The 250 SXF is the lightest in the class. It has an electric start and for years has been the fastest as well. The engine is a very sophisticated double overhead cam design with a valve train that uses finger followers between the cams and the valves in order to allow extremely high revs. The only thing that held it back was suspension. And last year, KTM addressed that with the WP AER 48 air fork. That meant there was nothing to hold it back from winning our 2017 shootout. It was the uncontested favorite among more experienced riders who didn't mind screaming the engine and taking advantage of the top end power. The bike offers a number of ways to alter the power band through a map switch and traction control. But no matter which setting you choose, it's a pro level rever. For 2018, KTM took a wait and see approach. The bike didn't get any mechanical changes aside from a beefier battery and some suspension tweaking. It did get a few cosmetic updates, including that orange frame. Honda is the wild card for this year's shootout. The other 5 bikes have minimal changes, but the 2018 CRF 250R is completely different. You hear terms like totally redesigned and all new tossed around every model year. But in this case, the very philosophy of the bike has changed. It now has double overhead cams with finger followers and a super short stroke. The engine is electric start only. Clearly, there's a lot of KTM influence here, but not everywhere. The air fork is gone, replaced with a Showa coil spring fork. The chassis is completely different from the old CRF 250R, but we did get a preview of it on the 2017 Honda CRF 450R. The 250 uses the same frame with minor variations around the engine cradle. Like the 450, it uses an intake that goes over the rear shock to eliminate the turn and give the throttle body a straight shot down to the intake valves. The end result is that the Honda is a screamer. There's a massive horsepower increase over last year, and it's all from mid-range up to the crazy top end scream. Even with all the changes, the Honda still handles like a Honda, which is to say it's very nimble and easy to turn. This is despite gaining weight compared to last year, between the electric start and the coil spring fork. the fact that the Husqvarna FC250 comes out of the same factory as the KTM 250 SXF. The Austrian parent company of both makes has done a great job separating them in identity, dealer network, and marketing. But at the end of the day, they share 90% of the same parts. The Husky has a few exclusive touches like the integrated airbox and subframe, DID Dirt Star rims, Pro Taper handlebar, and a Magura clutch master cylinder. It also has its own look with different bodywork. But like the KTM, its only real changes for 2018 are the battery, suspension settings, and graphics. On the track, it's really hard to separate the two bikes. They both have the same strengths, especially on top-end power and low overall weight. The Husky does have a slightly different riding position, and the power delivery is just a tiny bit smoother, but most riders rate the two bikes in a dead tie in sheer performance. The Kawasaki KX250F has had more success in pro racing than any other bike in its class. For that matter, it's the winningest motocross bike of modern times, thanks to riders like Ivan Tedesco and Ryan Villapoto. In more recent years, the KX hasn't been as dominant, leading to a total chassis redesign in 2017. Kawasaki followed that up with a long list of engine changes for the 2018 model. It doesn't have an electric start, but the KX is the lightest Japanese-made 250 four-stroke. It uses a single-spring Showa SFF Type 2 fork with the spring in one leg and all the damping functions in the other. The KX has a great low-end power and a very narrow layout, making it easy to ride. Another great function is that it can be tailored to fit almost any rider. The foot pegs and handlebar positions are adjustable, and you can switch maps with plug-in couplers or use the Kawasaki FI calibration kit, which is a handheld accessory. The Kawasaki standard power delivery makes it good for novices, and we know from the success of Pro Circuit's Monster Energy factory team, there is a pro-level bike just underneath the surface. Suzuki has been shuffled out of the limelight in the 250 class by newer bikes and pro teams with bigger names. But the RMZ 250 was the standard of the class for years, especially in the handling department. There were considerable changes for the 2015 model, but the bike didn't really look or perform any different. The bike still uses couplers that allow you to adjust the power delivery. The Suzuki's fundamental personality hasn't changed for years. It's still an extremely good handling bike with a smooth, torquey engine. The RMZ 250 is the uncontested king of turns. It lays into corners effortlessly and doesn't demand any special technique. On the negative side, the Suzuki is the heaviest bike in the comparison despite having no electric start. It also has the most modest peak power output. The bike still has a place in the market. It can certainly be made competitive, but the RMZ 250 hasn't quite kept up with the rest of the class. The Yamaha YZ250F has a huge following of devoted riders who absolutely love it. It's long been the #1 choice for novice and beginners, and there are a few pros who would prefer it over any other 250. When it got the reverse head downdraft intake treatment in 2014, it became the new horsepower standard of the 250 class, particularly down low, and was still reasonably light despite the coming of fuel injection. Yamaha stubbornly stuck with the KYB coil spring fork throughout the era of air forks, which further cemented its status as the most loved bike in the class. Since its introduction, Yamaha has been refining the bike from year to year without changing the fundamental formula. Now it returns with almost no changes for the new model year to face a class that has, for the most part, completely changed over the last 3 years. It still has suspension that's as good or better than any of the other production motocross bikes on earth. It still has great low-end power and excellent handling. And it might still be the favorite for everyone, short of a full-time pro racer. So we've had ample amount of time of testing on each bike individually and taking them to the same tracks, riding them at the same time, back to back. And yes, every bike has its strong points, but we've come up with an overall winner. And the winner of the 2018 Dirt Bike Magazine 250 Motocross Shootout is the KTM 250 SXF. That probably comes as no surprise to some of you, but when the bike is one of the lightest in the class, has an electric start, the powerful Brembo brakes, the WP AER 48 air fork is still one of the best air forks we've ridden on, and an engine that is flat out the most powerful in its class. So now you know the winner. To see where the other bike's placed, check out an upcoming issue of Dirt Bike Magazine. And if you don't want to wait for the printed product, head over to dirtbikemagazine.com right now for the online version of the 2018 250 MX Shootout. To see the individual 250 MX videos, click the video thumbnail now.